Right now, somewhere out in the Pacific Ocean, 5,000 American sailors are living and working on a slab of American steel the size of 4 football fields. And together, every single day, they generate enough trash to fill 6 dumpsters. That's about 3,000 pounds of waste riding along with them as the ship carves a white wake through blue water. Here's the part that'll really bend your brain. Not one piece of that garbage can simply be tossed over the side. Not the banana peels, not the plastic wrappers, not even a drop from the 410,000 gallons of wastewater the ship deals with daily. Every bit of it has to be separated, processed, recorded, and disposed of with the same discipline the Navy uses to launch jets. The waste operation on a single aircraft carrier is more complicated than what a lot of cities run. And what happens in those cramped, sweltering rooms below the waterline will make you look at these ships in a completely different way. When most people think about the power of America's aircraft carriers, they picture afterburners, catapults, and sailors in cranials bracing into the wind. But hidden beneath all that thunder is one of the toughest logistical challenges you've probably never heard of. These ships are floating cities, and cities make trash. Only this city lives in the middle of the ocean, with nowhere to stash a sloppy mistake. The USS George H.W. Bush, CVN-77, carries nearly 5,000 of America's finest, and each one of them generates waste just like you and me. The difference is, there's no landfill down the road and no city sewer to hook into. They're alone with their footprint, and they've built a system to manage it that's nothing short of an engineering flex. If you're proud of American innovation and military excellence, type proud in the comments below, because once the main content gets rolling, the numbers will make your head spin. In just 24 hours, a carrier's crew produces enough solid waste to fill a small apartment. Think about that. 8 compacted bundles of food scraps and paper weighing roughly 500 pounds each. 8 a day, adding up to 4,000 pounds of organics alone, and we haven't even touched the rest. Metals? That stream gets crushed and packed into 300-pound barrels, and they'll fill about 10 of those every day. Another 3,000 pounds from cans, hardware, and miscellaneous materials. On top of that mountain of solids, those same sailors generate about 10,000 gallons of wastewater every day. Roughly 8 residential swimming pools filled and refilled day after day. Remember where they are. Not tied into a city grid, not a pipe in sight that doesn't belong to the ship. So why not just pitch it all overboard? Because the US military treats environmental responsibility like a mission, and the law at sea is stricter than most people think. Managing waste on a nuclear-powered airport that floats is harder than launching a fighter jet. No exaggeration. Every item has to be identified, sorted, and processed under tight Navy rules and international maritime law. One careless decision isn't just a bad look. It can carry real consequences. Down in the belly of the ship, about 16 specially trained sailors make up the waste management department. They work in hot, humid compartments that smell exactly like 5,000 people's trash would smell, and they don't sugarcoat what they do. As one sailor put it, "We're raccoons. We dig through everybody's garbage and make sure it's sorted right." That's not just a colorful line, it's the core of the system. Everything begins with sorting. Food waste, paper, metals, glass, plastics, and hazardous materials. Each category has its own pathway, with equipment, rules, and distances from shore that determine what happens next. Food and paper get the most counterintuitive treatment. Once the ship is at least 3 nautical miles from land, that material runs through a pulping machine that chews it into fragments no larger than about 12 millimeters. It's then blended into a tight slurry and pumped overboard. Think of a massive, industrial garbage disposal, only this one runs under a watchful eye and a thick checklist. Combustibles, things like wood, worn uniforms, shop rags, magazines, are handled differently. Once the carrier is 12 nautical miles out, those materials can be incinerated. The ship's incinerators burn at temperatures high enough to completely destroy organic matter, leaving a fine ash that can be safely discharged at sea when and where regulations permit. The gear is big, loud, and unforgiving, and the people running it are all business. Metal and glass are even more restricted. The ship needs to be at least 25 nautical miles from the nearest coastline before those streams can be discharged. And even then, it's not a matter of tossing a handful of shards over the lifelines. Everything gets shredded or crushed first, then bagged in biodegradable burlap sacks before it leaves the ship. The process is deliberate, documented, and designed to minimize any environmental footprint. But the most challenging category, the one that turns everyone into a hawk, is plastic. International maritime law absolutely prohibits throwing plastic into the ocean, period. The only exception is a true, immediate threat to life, where crew safety is on the line. Otherwise, not a single wrapper leaves the hull. Instead, every piece of plastic goes to a machine with a clunky name and a brilliant purpose, the Compress Melt Unit, or CMU. This system rinses the plastic, shreds it down, heats it up, and presses it into rigid pucks, round discs about 20 inches across and roughly 4 inches thick. Those pucks get labeled, stacked, and stored until the ship reaches port or passes them to a supply vessel. The engineering is elegant because it solves 3 problems at once. It makes plastic compact, stackable, and manageable in the tightest storage spaces on Earth, hundreds of pounds a day if needed. The result is simple. American military plastic isn't turning up in anyone's fishing nets. And then there's the part that blows most people away: sewage. Handling human waste from 5,000 people would test a city, and this ship does it while underway. The Navy's system is called CHT, collect, hold, transfer. And calling it a sewage system doesn't quite capture it. This is a full-scale water treatment plant woven into the guts of a warship. When a sailor flushes, the wastewater enters a chain of treatment that would make a municipal engineer proud. Bioreactors to break things down, sedimentation tanks to separate solids, filtration systems to polish the effluent, and sterilization processes to finish the job. Only once the water is fully treated and meets strict environmental standards does it get discharged to the ocean. The rules are tight. The ship needs to be at least 4 nautical miles from shore before any treated water goes back to the sea. Samples are pulled and tested, numbers recorded, reports filed, and standards upheld that would surprise most city residents who think ships get a pass. They don't. Even with all that tech and discipline, problems happen, and when they do, they're no joke. The newest carrier, USS Gerald R. Ford, learned some hard lessons when early plumbing choices left certain sewage lines too narrow for the daily load from more than 4,000 crew. When the system chokes, you don't just jiggle a handle. You flush the network with acidic chemicals, an emergency measure that's been reported to cost around $400,000 for a single event. Older carriers have their own brand of pain. USS George H.W. Bush uses a vacuum-based system with roughly 250 miles of piping snaking through the hull. Lose vacuum in one critical segment, and suddenly every toilet on board is out of service. Picture 5,000 people in flight ops tempo with nowhere to go. In 2011, it happened more than once. Repair teams pulled 30-plus-hour marathons to bring the system back, and in the worst moments, sailors resorted to industrial sinks and shower drains as improvised toilets. No one on that deck plate has to be told twice how essential this work is. The Navy learned. Backups are in place, drills are better, and crews know the playbook. Waste management isn't just housekeeping, it's mission protection. The technology keeps getting sharper. One of the most impressive systems now rolling out is PAWD's, the Plasma Arc Waste Destruction System. It uses plasma-level temperatures to obliterate combustible waste in a compact, all-electric unit that's designed to run clean. Only a handful of these exist, and they're being fielded to American aircraft carriers. PAWD's is small, efficient, and powerful enough to handle almost any burnable stream without the kind of emissions you'd expect from a normal incinerator. It's a signpost for where naval waste management is headed. Cleaner, smarter, less storage, less risk. None of this happens in a vacuum. The logistics over a long deployment will make your head spin. Carriers can stay at sea for months without touching land. During Operation Enduring Freedom, USS Theodore Roosevelt spent 159 days continuously underway. That meant 159 days of waste that had to be processed, stored, or disposed of with nothing but what the ship carried and what came alongside. On stretches like that, waste becomes a mission variable. Run out of storage space for plastic pucks, compacted metal, or sealed hazmat, and you might be forced to pull into port early. That's why the 16-person waste team matters every bit as much as the pilots launching off the bow. And it's why supply ships, the gray giants that bring fuel, food, and mail, are critical. Once a week, when conditions allow, those ships ease in close in a choreographed move called underway replenishment, or UNREP. It's dramatic and dangerous even on a calm day. Lines snap taut between hulls, pallets swing, and sailors move loads of compacted waste, plastic discs, and secured hazmat from the carrier to the replenishment ship. Those materials then head to shore facilities for final disposal. The timing is a tightrope. Too much waste piling up can overwhelm storage. Too many transfers can disrupt operations or leak information about where the carrier is. Throw in rough seas and you're moving 300-pound drums across pitching decks, where a single mistake could break bones or send gear into the drink. It takes guts and skill to do it right. There's a bigger reason behind all the checklists: distances and compaction weights, the ocean itself. The Navy takes pride in being a steward of the environment it operates in. The waste teams see themselves as guardians, not just technicians. They know the facts. Millions of tons of plastic enter the oceans every year from civilian sources. Keeping military plastic out of that stream isn't just compliance, it's leadership. It's proof that military strength and environmental responsibility don't cancel each other out. They can coexist when you put in the work, and the work here is real. The sailors in this specialty go through extensive training. They study international law, environmental rules, equipment operation, safety procedures, and emergency responses. They're not just tossing bags, they're running industrial systems on a warship, and if they get it wrong, the consequences can touch far more than a single deck plate. Safety is non-negotiable. Incinerators, chemical lines, press machinery, none of it is forgiving, and all of it lives in tight spaces filled with heat and fumes. These men and women show up anyway, day after day, and keep the rest of the crew healthy and the living spaces clean. It's expensive too. Systems like PAWDs cost millions of dollars per ship to buy and integrate. Then there's the manpower, maintenance, spares, and supplies. Waste management is a real line item in a carrier's operating budget, and it's worth every dime compared to the fines, diplomatic fallout, and damage a bad discharge could cause. Meanwhile, the innovation doesn't stop. Engineers are pushing for even more efficient systems, greener processes, and smarter controls. Future carriers may be able to process materials that today still require special handling. Food waste is a good example. Bones and fruit pits are stubborn, and better pulping tech could reduce what has to be stored aboard. The more you can convert, the less you have to carry, and the more time you can stay on station without blinking. The human piece matters just as much as the equipment. The 16 sailors in this division operate in some of the toughest spaces on the ship. The job is physical, the environment is punishing, and the responsibility is heavy. They take pride in it because they know their work keeps shipmates healthy and protects the ocean that sustains them. There's a career path here too. Experienced hands become supervisors, trainers, or technical experts. Some transition into environmental compliance or roll their skills into civilian waste management careers after the Navy. And yes, the mental side is real. Working in tight, smelly spaces and handling other people's trash day after day requires resilience. The Navy backs them with rotation schedules and support so they can do the job and keep their edges. What makes the whole operation remarkable isn't just the hardware. It's what it says about American values. The Navy could take shortcuts. It could cut corners and quietly hope no one notices. Instead, It chooses the harder path: strict compliance, deliberate processes, and systems that keep getting better. Every day on carriers around the world, waste management sailors prove that American military might is paired with American standards. Protecting the planet and defending the nation aren't separate tasks. On these ships, they're the same mission. So the next time you watch a clip of fighters launching from a deck awash in spray, remember the heat and noise below, where a small team is sorting, pulping, burning, compacting, sampling, and logging tons of trash and hundreds of thousands of gallons of wastewater so the mission can keep moving. They're the quiet force that makes the loud parts possible. Their work ensures that American operations at sea leave nothing behind but the defense of freedom and democracy. In a world that's paying closer attention to environmental responsibility than ever, our Navy leads by example, showing that excellence at arms and stewardship of the ocean can live in the same hull. This operation runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on carriers around the globe, guarding our national security and the environment at the same time. The people doing it deserve respect for handling one of the military's toughest jobs with professionalism and pride. If this opened your eyes to another extraordinary piece of American military excellence, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about the people and technology that keep our nation safe. See you next time.